Okay, so let's go ahead and get started by solving for SST. So I've gone ahead and written the formula up top for us. I've also made a copy of the table that all of our answers are going to go into. So if you need to pause the video and make a copy of that so you have something to write all your answers down into, you go ahead and do that. Something that I didn't really explain too much before was the columns and rows. So when you're looking at the boxes for the Factorial ANOVA, the columns are going to be from top to bottom, and then the rows are going to be from left to right. So if, say, somebody's asking you for the information from column 1, this is column 1. This is going to be column 2. This is going to be row 1, and this is going to be row 2. So that's something that you might need to know for later. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve for SST. So if you look here, we've got the sum of the raw scores squared for group 1, group 2, group 3, and so on. So you can go ahead and plug those in if you like. So we've got 422, we've got 84, 176, and 23. But we also added all those numbers up for this value here. So you can do that two ways. You can just plug in all the numbers directly here, from here to here, and then add them up. Or you can just go ahead and use this that we've gone ahead and added up. So I'm going to do it the slower way, and I'm just going to plug these values in here and do it that way. Okay, so we'll have 422 for the sum of the raw score squared for group 1, and then we'll count this as group 2, so that'll be 84 plus, then we have group 3, which is 176, and then we have for group 4, which is 23. Okay, and then we're going to subtract, so we have our sum of squares value, which is right here. So we have 115, and that's going to be squared, and that's going over our large n value over here of 24. Okay, so let's go ahead and add all of those up, and that's going to give us 705 minus the 115 squared. So 115 squared is going to give us 115 times 115 is going to give us 13,225 over 24. Okay, so then we are going to have 705 minus, so we'll take 13,225, divide it by 24, and that's going to give us 551.04. And don't forget to round. Okay, and then we are going to subtract those, and that is going to give us 153.96. Okay, so for our SST value, we're going to have 153.96. So that's going to go here. So 153 point, what was it, 96? 96. Okay, next let's go ahead and solve for our sum of squares between groups. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug this value in here. So we have the sum of the raw scores for group 1 squared, so that is 50. So we have 50 squared plus, for group 2, we have 22 squared plus group 3 is 32 squared plus group 4 is 11 squared. All of that is going over 6 minus the sum of the raw scores for all the groups, which is this value here, 115. That's going to be squared, and that's going over our n value for all of our groups, which is 24. Okay, so 50 squared is 2,500 plus 22 squared is 484 plus 32 squared is 1,024 plus 11 squared is 121. All that's going over 6. And we're subtracting 115 squared was 13,225 over 24. Okay, all right, so now we're going to add all of these up here. So when we add 2,500, 1,024, 484, and 121, that is going to give us 4,129.96. over 6. We can go ahead and divide that out. That is going to give us 551.04. Okay, so let's divide 4129 by 6. That's going to give us 688.17 minus our 551.04, and then that is going to give us a final value of 137.13. Okay, so this isn't going into our table. This is going to be used later to help us find the sum of squares within groups, but let's go ahead and make a note of it over here. So the sum of squares between groups equals 137.13. Okay, now we are going to use the sum of squares between groups to find the sum of squares within groups, okay? So if we look at our table here, we have our SST value of 153.96, and then we are going to subtract our sum of squares between groups right here, which is 137.13. Okay, so when we subtract those, that is going to give us 16.83. And then we're going to go ahead and write that into our table here for the SS within groups right here. So that's going to go right here. So that'll be 16.83. Okay, next let's solve for SSA, or the sum of squares for columns. So for me, this is when labeling the boxes really came in handy. If you don't feel comfortable labeling the boxes and using the letters that are in the formula, then by all means, you don't have to. All of these values here are the A, B, C, and D. All of that is completely optional. It's up to you, whatever is easiest for you. When I was taking statistics, it just made it a little bit easier for me to kind of organize the information a little bit more and make sure that I wasn't using numbers from rows when I wasn't supposed to be and things like that. But by all means, whatever works easiest for you, go ahead and do that. So for this problem, I'm going to go ahead and use the labeling of the boxes. Okay, so for column 1, we are going to need the sum of the raw scores from box A and box B, or from column 1. Okay, so this is column 1 here, so we are going to need information from this area here. Okay, so from box A, the sum of the raw scores is 50. Okay, and then from box B, the sum of the raw scores is 22, and then that's going to get squared. That's going to go over column 1's in value, or box A's in value, which is 6. And then we need box B's in value, which is also 6. And then we're going to do the same thing for column 2. So for column 2, we need the sum of the raw scores for box C, which is 32. And then we are going to need the sum of the raw scores for box D, which is 11. And then all of that gets squared. Okay, and then we need the in value for C, which is 6, and then the in value for D, which is also 6. And then if you had more columns or more rows, you would just continue the equation. But since we don't, we can go ahead and stop there. And then we are going to subtract the sum of the raw scores for everything, for all of the boxes, which is this value here of 115. And that is squared, and that's going to go over in value here of 24. Okay, so when we add 50 and 22 together, that's going to give us 72 squared. We're going to add 6 and 6. That's going to give us 12. Plus 32 plus 11 is 43. That's going to be squared, and that's going to also go over 12. Then we are going to square this and divide that. Now we've done that multiple times, so we already know that the value for that is 551.04. Okay, so 72 squared is going to be 5,184 over 12, plus 43 squared is 1849 over 12, minus the 551.04. Okay, and then let's go ahead and divide that out. So 5184 divided by 12 is going to give us 432. And then 1849 divided by 12 is going to give us 154.08. And then we're still subtracting our 551.04. Okay, so let's go ahead and add these two values together. So when we add these two values, that's going to give us 586.08. Subtract that 551.04. Okay, and that is going to give us a final value of 35.04. Okay, so then you are going to go ahead and take your table here and write in your value for the SSA. Okay, so that goes here, and that's going to be 35.04. Okay, so next let's work on the sum of squares for the rows. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing that we did before, but the letters are a little bit different in this one because we're doing rows instead of columns. So like I said before, like these are columns and these are rows. So if you look, there's A and C for this part of the problem. So there's A and C because that's a row, and then there's B and D because that's a row. Okay, so let's go ahead and just plug in those numbers and get that all solved. Okay, so for row 1, we're going to need the sum of the raw scores, which is in box A. Okay, so we have 50 plus the row 1 sum of the raw scores for box C, which is 32. Okay, and that's squared. And then that's going to go over the row 1 in values, which is 6 and 6. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing for row 2. So we need the sum of the raw scores for box B, which is 22, plus box D, which is 11. Okay, and then that's going to get squared. And then we're going to do 6 over 6 again. And then minus the total sum of the raw scores, which is 115 over 24, and then this gets squared. Okay, so we are going to add up 50 plus 32. That's going to give us 82 squared over 12. Plus 22 plus 11 is 33 squared over 12 minus, remember we've done this multiple times, so we have 551.04 for that. Okay, so 82 squared is going to give us 6,724 over 12 plus 33 squared is 1,089 over 12 minus our 551.04. Okay, so let's go ahead and divide that out. That is going to give us 560.33, and don't forget to round, plus, when we divide this out, that'll give us 90.75 minus our 551.04. Okay, so let's go ahead and do these two here. Okay, so 560.33 plus 90.75 is going to give us 651.08 minus 551.04. Okay, so when we solve that out, we get 100.04. Okay, and then we are going to take our table. We're going to write that value in. So the 100.4 is for SSV, which is for rows, so that goes here. So we have 100.04.